Tuesday, June 7th, 2022, and this is the Arlington County Board of Equalization hearing. We have 3 cases on the agenda, but before we start the agenda, Richard Stevenson from the county has an announcement that he wants to give to the board. Mr. Stevenson?
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Yes, my name is Richard Stevenson. As you know, Rick Millman, the assessor for Arlington County, retired on Friday. I've been appointed the acting director of real estate assessments, but that is only very temporary. Just recently, Derek Dubé has been appointed the position of assessor. And as you know, he, or may not know, he is out on paternity leave for a couple weeks. So I'm going to be acting director in the interim. Maria Meredith wanted to be here this morning, but she had some family situations that she needed to take care of. She's out of town. But it's nice to meet you. I actually worked in the Department of Real Estate Assessment years ago. I was an appraiser doing cases before the same board back from 94 to about 2001. At that time, I left and went to the Department of Management and Finance, still under, or went to budget under the Department of Management and Finance. And I'm currently the budget director for Arlington County, overseeing the operating and capital budgets. So with my experience in real estate and the fact that I'm physically located up here every day, I come in every day. I'll just be helping to oversee the operations of real estate assessments in the interim for Derek. So any commercial questions or technical BOE related things, I'm going to defer to the commercial appraisers and to Derek, but happy to assist in any way or facilitate in any way as needed. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mary, or if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Richard. Well, we're happy to have you in the interim, and welcome back. And we will certainly be looking forward to working with Derek when he comes back from his paternity leave. So that being said, we've got a quorum. We'll move to the agenda items. The first item on the agenda is RPC 200123332. The property is located at 4141 Henderson Road, Unit 1211. And Mr. Daniel Bluestone, are you on the call, sir?
I am.
Okay, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about the property.
Okay, great. I'm going to pull up my screen share and already. Okay. This is 4141 North Henderson. I have unit 1211 at the back of the building, purchased for $483,000 in 2018. When I purchased the property, I bought it for $13,225 below assessment, but the assessor did not register that sales price when they arrived at their assessments that year. 6 months later, the assessment stood well above the purchase price at $505,000, and that's just continued. That original error, I think, has been replicated over and over again. It now is at $570,000, $800. Mr. Carvajal's statement in the staff recommendation for this meeting says that even after the increases for 2022 in the cohort of units sold in this assessment year, all of the assessment values were lower than the sales price. In my statement, I wondered why that was being true, why that was being the case, but it's also not true. There's a cohort of properties that sold for less than assessment, and they all have assessments now over what they were purchased for in the assessment window. That's the case with my property, and it has continued, as I say, to unfold. The assessment is a strange system in this building. This building is 50 years old, 42 years as a condominium, with a wide variety of improvements and sales prices, even for the same units over time. And yet there's a lockstep assessment approach, which this you can see. These are all of the buildings, all of the units in the 11 tier. And the only change that the assessor sees and acknowledges is a change that goes $1,000 per floor as you go up through the building. And this just ignores sales price and improvements. It's a world without sales price and improvement. Case one, 2 floors below me, was purchased in 2020 for $527,000. In other words, $43,000 higher than what I paid for my unit. And when I looked at that and saw that, it was no wonder. They had completely remodeled their kitchen, provided new surfaces for other walls and surfaces in the building. They had, in the master bedroom, laid new floors and then completely remodeled the bathroom, grabbing, this is my unit, grabbing the walk-in closet and the bathroom behind that and making it into a single new master bathroom. This is my kitchen. No improvements. The outside balcony, no improvements. The previous owner had owned this for 15 years, had never lived here. It was a rental unit. They did cheap fly-by their pants things. And when we started poking around here, serious issues with condition. The parquet floor was molding and also delaminating. And this is it today. I mean, this is still a problem. I live with the leaking convectors and with the damage that was done over the rental period. The irony of this, looking at this unit, is this is back to 1010. The new owner decided they didn't like all of the changes and remodeled it yet again and has spent in this assessment year another $30,000. Which means that between the purchase price and what was spent this year, they're at $75,000 more value than my unit. This is totally new floors in that unit. And so here you have it, exceeded the price, $30,000 more, and yet their assessment's lower than mine, $2,000 less than mine. Case study 2, 1218, same floor, nearly identical floor plan, purchased right when I purchased mine for $46,000 more than I paid. Again, perfectly clear, remodeled kitchen, beautifully done, new floors. My floors are 50 years old. These floors were laid in the last 7 years. Remodeling of the bathrooms, remodeling of the living room, tiles on the balcony. And yet their assessment is $7,500 less than my assessment. Is this equitable? I don't think so. Case study 3, this was introduced by the assessor staff. Unit 1024, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, like my unit, a complete gut rehab in 2017. It was purchased in June, a year ago, for $625,000. Mr. Carvajal would take your attention to this because it suggests that people are willing to pay lots of money in this building. But that unit has not a single surface, not a single place in that unit that is older than 2017. Complete gut rehab. They went down to this comparison of their kitchen with my kitchen, my 50-year-old floors with their less than 5-year-old floors, their living room, my living room, with all of the problems, and then their view, again, off of their balcony, and my view off of my balcony, looking into a construction project in rising 8 and 9-story units, buildings right in the view shed of my building. These are not comparable, and yet on this the assessment for 1024 this year is $44,000 less than my unit. Is this equitable? Mr. Carvajal might say, well, Bluestone has a few hundred more square feet in his unit. That's all over here, the hallway that bends around, plus 50 square feet additional space in the kitchen. Otherwise, these units are nearly identical. And I just think, how is it that you can spend $625,000 and end up with an assessment of $44,000 less than mine? Again, tale of two sides of the building, big construction site in the backyard of the units facing in the back. What's going up is 732 apartments, 3 8 and 9 story buildings, 77,000 square feet of retail space. This is what I had when I moved in. And I did an analysis. Mr. Carvajal just waves it away. My analysis says that the units overlooking the construction site are 36% of the units in the building, and yet they only represent 24% of the sales in this assessment window. And units facing the construction exceeded the 2021 assessment by 5.1%. Units not facing it exceeded that assessment by 8.8%. And when you take the outlier of Unit 1010, which really looks not into the construction site, but over Thomas Street, which Mr. Carvajal realizes, the assessment of the beating of the assessment by the sales prices is only 1.7%. That's 5 times less than the ones in the front. I just think it's really hard. And then the relevant cohort, 2-bedroom, 2 baths, you can see the 3 2-bedroom, 2 baths in the front of the building exceeded the 2021 assessment by 18.4%. The one sale of a 2-bedroom, 2 bath unit looking toward the construction is 12.3% below the 2021 assessment. Simple common sense, looking at the sales data, looking at improvements, suggests a lower assessment for 1211. Thank you for your time, for being here. I watch you all come in here this morning and struggle with the technology. I appreciate your service and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bluestone. Hall for the county.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. The subject is Unit 1211 at the Hyde Park condo. It is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,702 square feet, and is located on the uppermost 12th floor with a balcony that faces northwest. The inspection conducted last year showed the interior of the unit to be near original condition. No changes were made to the property record following the departmental review. Over the past 2 analysis periods, we've been tracking construction at the Harris Teeter site to see if it had any effect on market value. No change was observed last year, and no change was observed this year as well. Of all the sales at Hyde Park, only 12 were considered valid open market sales that took place in the analysis period for 2022. We saw everything from efficiencies to 3-bedroom sell, fully renovated, as well as lightly updated units, as well as units facing north, east, south, and west. All sales had assessments lower than their sale price, with a tight grouping of assessment to sale ratios in most units, but a larger range in assessment to sale ratios for efficiency units. Direction the unit faced, or whether it was slightly updated or fully renovated, had no quantifiable difference in market value overall. If there is a clear and consistent quantifiable difference between renovated and non-renovated units, we will go ahead and make the appropriate adjustments. In mass appraisal, we need to observe what all the units are doing and not just isolate a couple. The change for 2022 was an 8% increase for 2-bedroom units, while efficiency saw a 12% increase to their improvement base values. 1-bedroom units appreciated the least at only 2%. These changes brought the median assessment to sale ratio for the neighborhood to 94%. There was one sale of a fully renovated unit, 1024, that sold significantly higher than its assessment, but this was only one of the 12 sales. Other fully renovated units did not see such a premium value paid between renovated and slightly updated units of comparable size. In mass appraisal, we need to group and analyze together all fully renovated units, not just the outliers. There were no sales of the subject's model, but a grouping of 3 1,400 square foot units occurred. These are provided on the comp sheet. Units 1024, 423, and 323 are all roughly 300 square feet smaller than the subject. If you refer to page 4 of the packet, we can walk through them. Comp 1, 1024, was the sale that stood out in the analysis as the outlier. Comp 2 and 3 are better representations of what we typically see at Hyde Park. Comp 2, Unit 423, has a renovated kitchen, but original 1970s bathrooms. Comp 3 is fully renovated and has an updated kitchen, bathrooms, and flooring. Comp 2 and 3 show the difference we typically see in market value between renovated and slightly updated units at Hyde Park. This is also apparent in the one-bedroom and efficiency units as well. The sale of Comp 4 on page 5 might provide some more context to market value at Hyde Park. Although this unit is superior to the subject in that it has one additional bedroom, it has the same amount of bathrooms and the square footage is a little closer to the subject, having a difference of only 120 square feet. Unit 1010 has updated bathroom vanities, but still the original shower tub combos. The kitchen countertops have been updated and the flooring has been updated at some point. Not a complete or full renovation, but typical updates that we see in units of this age. Due to the evidence provided in the comp sheet, as well as the overall sales analysis, the department recommends that the 2022 assessment for the subject be confirmed at $570,800. This opinion of market value can be confirmed as fair based on the sales observed in the analysis and can be confirmed as equitable amongst other units at Hyde Park. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we move to questions, Mr. Bluestone, can I ask you to take your share screen down, please?
I'm sorry, I don't, let's see. Oh, yeah, okay, got it. Could I make one comment?
No, we will ask questions and then you'll get a minute to tell us additional information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, questions from board members. Mr. Lawson, welcome back.
Oh, thank you very much. This is for the county. I have 3 questions. Question number 1, the proximity of the grocery store to this condominium, does that factor in your establishing the value?
The proximity, not necessarily. There is it will have an effect on market value that there's a grocery a block away. That is calculated in the market value. Like I said, the fact that area is being redeveloped, a lot of construction, a lot of noise. We're keeping an eye on sales that occur on that side of the building to see if they have a consistent quantifiable difference in market value between the similar units that are on the other side of the building. So it is something we take a look at, but so far there haven't been any adjustments due to it.
Is this condo considered within the market, within the metro area? Or is it too far? Is the walk too far?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay, and then the last one, aren't the units, isn't the size of most units in this condominium larger than newer condominiums? Is that accurate?
I mean, they're for condominiums, I don't know, we see it all. We have units that are 300 square feet, 1 bedroom, up to units that are 1,200 square feet, 1 bedroom. In new construction last year, we saw everything from efficiencies up to very large 3 bedrooms. So I wouldn't really say there's a standard size. There's just a little bit of everything.
Great, thank you.
Okay, other board members, questions? Mr. Matzkin.
Thank you. I have 3 questions for the department as well. The first one is, your comparables showed some upgrades, but not massive upgrades relative to the appellants. My question is, as 1 or 2 examples that the appellant showed of really massive, significant, pervasive upgrades, would you take, as an example, the appellant's unit, which is almost, 1970, well, it is a 1970s effective age, would you take that out of the box and make it and lower that because the preponderance of comparables are so superior? Or do you just go again, same tier, same, floor premium?
Right, we do, when we conduct our analysis, we take a look at all the sales and see what level of renovation they had. We do identify their level of renovation. At a building like Hyde Park, we do see most units have some level of renovation just because of their age. So like I was explaining, the comp 4 is a good example of like a typical unit. You know, they'll update small things in the kitchen and in the bathroom, but they're not complete blowouts or gut jobs. That's typical of what we see. In the analysis, you'll see things that are renovated a lot more, and then things that are still near original, although those near original condition units, you know, they don't sell that often. So when we make our adjustments to our analysis, if we can't quantify a value difference or a percentage between fully renovated and original condition units, when we increase our assessments, we'll be a little more conservative. And for this neighborhood, we maxed out at 94% assessment to sale ratio for the neighborhood overall, just because we don't have that information in order for us to quantify a 5% adjustment or a 10% adjustment to original condition units, which we have in other buildings when we have the data available to us. But for this building, we keep the assessments low overall because of that, because we don't want to compare everybody to these remodeled units, but at the same time recognize that we have to bring the market value up, but not up to the point that it matches what it is for these renovated units.
For the most renovated, yeah.
Right, and somehow acknowledge that there are several units that are still in their original condition.
Okay, great. The second question is, speaking of ratios, on the 2-bedroom units, which, you know, vary by a couple hundred square feet one way or the other, where's the appellant's ratio relative to other 2 bedrooms on average? Do you break them out that way by number of bedrooms?
The 2 bedrooms that sold in the analysis were all 300 square foot smaller than the subject. So it's you know, I put them in the comp sheet so you can kind of look what their sale price is and what their assessments are. But we need a comparable unit to the subject to sell something, either a similar square footage or something near original condition for us to really.
Well, I know that this is the best we have. I just want to know if you broke out ratios just for 2 bedrooms or units between, who knows, 1,300 and 1,800 square feet, or is it just the entire building ratio?
No, we break down. So in some buildings, we'll see a similar trend throughout all units, but it is something we look at. We look to see if the efficiencies are doing something different than the 1 bedrooms or the 2 bedrooms. And in this building, we were able to quantify differences in market value to efficiencies and 1 bedrooms. Like I mentioned, the efficiencies, let me see here. The 2 bedrooms, we saw an 8% increase in market value. Efficiency saw a 12% increase, while the 1 bedroom units only saw 2%.
Okay, thanks. And finally, if you saw a unit in the analysis period, like the one that the appellant brought up, just massively updated, would you take that, would you assess that as an outlier, knowing that it's superior to all similar units? Or does it just fall in the same genre as any mass appraisal?
Right. If I were a fee appraiser, I think I would be able to pull it out, find comparable units, find some sort of adjustment to put on it to increase the assessment. In mass appraisal, we have to look at the building overall. And we recognize that there is, that it was a highly renovated unit, but we can't quantify an adjustment on it, just like we wouldn't be able to quantify an adjustment for an original condition unit if we don't see enough data points.
Okay. So people spending a lot of money in the area of assessment purely are probably getting a good deal because it's a mass appraisal in one neighborhood, in this case, a multifamily building. Okay, so some people get a break and some don't, is what you're saying. Relative to fee appraisal, where it's a 1 by 1. Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Other questions from board members? Mr. Lawson.
Yes, ma'am. This is for the owner. Didn't this condominium ban all smoking in all units throughout the building?
There's no smoking and no dogs in Hyde Park condominium. That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, any final questions? No? Okay, Mr. Carvajal, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Sure. I have no new information to add, just that the board please consider the sales that occurred within the analysis period. I do we do recognize that there were some late sales that are coming in with assessments lower than or assessments higher than their sale price. We talked about this in a previous Hyde Park case. If we see that the assessments or the sale prices are coming in higher than our assessed values for the time period which encapsulates the analysis period, we'll go ahead and make those changes. But for 2022's analysis period, when we saw 12 sales, even after our increases to the assessed value for those units, the total assessments were still lower than the market value for the analysis period. So take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Bluestone, if you take a minute to wrap up and tell us any final comments, sir.
I wanted to follow up on Mr. Matskin's questions where those seem to be headed. My unit in Hyde Park has the highest assessment of any other 2-bedroom unit, period, full stop. There's no other 2-bedroom unit with an assessment as high as mine. And I think the board could certainly come up with a number that represents the conditions that my unit is $44,000 assessed over that totally gutted, renovated unit. Makes no sense. Let's find a number that at least represents the reality, which is that my unit is by no stretch of the imagination the highest assessed 2-bedroom unit in Hyde Park. It simply is not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. It's just among the board members now. What's everybody think? We've seen several properties in this building. Mr. Penaranda?
Well, the only issue compared, when we compare this unit to the other units that we've seen already this year, I think it's mainly the condition. I don't really see any other treatment that the county did that is unfair compared to the other units, all the other, everything else in the building. I've seen the units that they provided, the appellant provided, and the county, each record, and all the assessments went up from last year to this year at a pretty much the same level, the same ratio. So if there's any adjustment to be made, it would be based on the condition. But we've seen other units in other buildings that had similar conditions that were assessed. Some of them were just lack of improvements or lack of making any changes, but it didn't necessarily affect the assessment per se for the unit. So that would be my only concern as far as just the condition of the unit.
Okay, Mr. Yates?
Jose, how do you align that with the assessment value of his unit in that ranking? Is it just that all the others are low and the county hasn't moved on people or on the other units? Or, I mean, it does seem out of a line. And the comps that he came up with, I hear it. And I do understand the county's equalization requirements based on what has sold. But his is not, it seems to be sitting out of that norm. On a bell curve, it's not in it.
Yeah, as far as the square footages, they are in line. All the comps that they provided, unit 1218, 1011, 419, 1010, they all seem to be in line, except, most of the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, like Mr. Carvajal said, they are smaller. They're, in the 1400 range square footage. So this unit is 1700 and, 1702. So that's also one thing to consider, that it is larger. So when, the Mr. Bluestone says that, yeah, it is the highest assessed value on a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, but it is also one of the larger units on a 2-bedroom, 2-bath.
Okay, other folks? Mr. Matskin?
I'm sympathetic to the appellant's point of view, but And I have been looking to see, this seems to be a little bit of an outlier, but unfortunately for me and for him, I can't justify, based maybe primarily on what Jose said, it's an outlier for a reason, namely that it's larger than the stereotypical two-bedroom. And maybe that offsets the fact that it's also an outlier that it's not as improved as the stereotypical two-bedroom. I'm guessing, as we've heard several times from the department, that as they monitor sales on one side of the building towards construction and the other towards greenery, that this might change next year, and the appellant is going to, because of the noise and confusion, is going to benefit. But I do think my bottom line is that I think there's a lot of units here that are under assist based on sales in the analysis period. So the appellant's position of being an outlier is really is true but unfounded. It's really the others that are outliers. So as much as I'd like to vote to diminish his assessment a bit, I can't in good conscience do that.
Well, I agree that his size does set a difference, and it may still be a two-bedroom, but it's kind of like having a larger yard.
Mhm.
You know, but you're a 15% difference, and I'm looking. I see what the county's doing with the existing assessments, or with the sales. Excuse me. I'm looking at the list that he provided, and some of that information I tried to write down. And I think you may be right that it is that the others are under assessed, and maybe the county, and I don't mean anything against the county in this, they're seeing things happening and potentially happening. They're waiting to change some of that until next year. But he's sitting in this year with the highest priced unit with a 15% difference in size, but still a two-bedroom. I think he's off, but compared to the others, not compared to the comps that the county came up with. I agree with that.
Okay. So where is everybody?
Did we ever make any, I'm sorry, Barnes, did
ahead,
we ever
Mr.
make any adjustment based on condition on other units? I don't recall doing that, but I mean, the other thing that throws me off of making any adjustment is the sales that have happening. You know, there was another unit that was provided 1010, which is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It is larger. It's 1,822 square feet. It's about 120 square feet higher than the subject, but you know, it is renovated. It's all for 659,000. So the sales are there. It's just that, you know, the unit itself, the subject, is not in the condition that it would bring that price. But
the
Mr.
higher
Penrod, on that sale that you just mentioned, what's the assessment on that property? Do you know? The 1,800 square feet.
it's for this year is 591,500.
But it is a 3-bedroom also, not
3-bedroom, 2-bath, right?
Well, don't
All right,
forget.
Mr. Lawson, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to share. I don't have the benefit of other, you all heard apparently some other appeals on this building. So I don't have the benefit of that. For years, my office was in this building. And the reason I asked some of the questions I asked was there was no grocery store next to us when I was there. And I walk to it all the time. It's about 3 blocks away. And man, it'd be nice if I had one within, right next door. I think that adds a lot of value. The condominium is really in very great fiscal shape. It's in good shape. They have this beautiful plaza behind them that I listened to jackhammering for like 3 months. But now that it's over, it's a beautiful plaza. And I think this is just a great building. It's about 3-4 blocks from the metro, kind of a long walk. But all these units are larger, is my recollection, from all these new projects being built, much larger, I mean, significantly larger. And, this building was, I think, the first, Mary, under the legislation that, was passed where you can ban smoking. And smoking was banned. We met with the leadership of this condo to try to do it in my own. And having heard all of these arguments, I recognize that a new buyer would probably invest in some improvements. But I honestly think that given the condo, given the location, given a number of factors, I feel the assessed value is probably appropriate. So I'll throw that out and see if anyone salutes.
Okay. So I'm confused on where Mr. Yates and Mr. Matzkin are. Mr. Yates.
I think I pretty much agree with Barnes in this. I think his assessment is right, given the equalization factors from the county and the comps they have. I think the problem is he is still an outlier compared to the rest of the current assessments in that building. I think he has shown that, except we are dealing with what the counties come up with their comps, and it's a toss-up. I'd love to see everyone go the other direction, but I could also vote that this is to confirm the county based on what they. It's a tough one.
All the considerations that he said and bottom line, got to come to a bottom line.
Right.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion, please? Mr. Lawson.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that the county's assessed value of $570,800 be confirmed.
Okay. We have a motion, a second by Mr. Matzkin. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jose, are you an aye?
Yeah, I'm aye.
Okay, all right, then it's unanimous, 5-0. The county is confirmed at $570,800. Thank you, Mr. Bluestone.
Thank you. We'll see you at Circuit Court. This is so unfair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, I believe.
Madam Chair, if I may just interject for a moment, Farhad Fatakia, representing Polio Investments LLC. I apologize, ma'am. We have an unfolding family emergency, and I was wondering if it would be possible for us to simply reschedule this. I can come in at the time and date that is convenient to the board, but unfortunately, I won't be able to be here for our hearing today. And I just wanted to come in and appear in person, just out of respect for the board.
Unfortunately, if it's been scheduled, we need to hear it. Although we have an opening, we could do it tomorrow because we've got a cancellation and withdrawal tomorrow.
Do you have a time for that, a time certain, or what slot number it would be in? And I will ensure that I am there.
Okay, we'll put you in the second slot, which is what the cancellation was.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Good luck with your situation.
Thank you.
Okay, so RPC 1806.
Mary, I'm sorry to interrupt. Shouldn't we have a motion and a vote to defer this to tomorrow?
I don't think so. I think it's housekeeping.
Okay.
Okay. So RPC 18064-006 at 2608 3rd Street North is going to be moved to slot number 2 tomorrow.
And Madam Chairperson, if I may be excused from the meeting.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
So that'll go to that. Okay, so do we have, I saw earlier, Mr. Bluestone, I'm going to ask you to turn your camera off so we can have Mr. Maskell turn his camera on.
Good morning, board. I'm Ben Maskell.
Mr. Bluestone?
think it might be a glitch because it looks frozen, the image.
Yeah, it does look.
It's okay, I will just remove him.
Can you remove him? Okay. All right, so the second and apparently last case for today is RPC 18033-009. The property is located at 937 North Daniel Street. And Mr. Maskell, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about your property, sir.
Good morning, board. The subject property is at 937 North Daniel Street. It was built in 1927. That's almost 100 years ago. I purchased it in April of 2021. That was just last year for $1.54 million. At the time, the market was extraordinarily hot, much different than the conditions are today. And I purchased it ostensibly with no contingencies, no inspection, really no contingencies. My timing was extraordinarily terrible. I certainly overpaid for this property. I'm very happy here, but I certainly overpaid. The property itself is approximately 3,200 square feet. It has 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. It has an unfinished basement that probably has 5-foot ceilings in it, so you can't actually walk around there. No major renovations have been conducted on this property in approximately 30 years. If you were to look at the pictures on the internet that you could probably find on the internet, the property actually looks pretty. It presents well. It's been superficially well maintained. Paint does wonders. I would call this to some degree lipstick on a pig. The property itself, after living here for a year, and I have to admit I'm rather unsophisticated in matters of housing quality, but there's a lot of actual real problems that we've discovered. There's termite damage, and these are things that we noted the major maintenance problems in the appeal. But we can provide more detail on that now. There's termite damage. The siding is rotting. It's got cedar siding and it's rotting. The floors sag. I'm sitting at my desk right now, and if I were not holding onto my desk, my chair would roll back. The insulation in the house is from parts of the house are from the 20s, and it's garbage. In the winter, the HVAC runs all day. And that's just what we've found and what we've observed by being here. Those are not little things that you can just, go hire a contractor to fix. Those are major, deep 5-digit expenses to fix. As to valuation, our appeal proposes 2 methods for providing a valuation for the property. And we detailed this method in our appeal and what we put in writing. And we're not going to go into great depth on that right now because that's in writing. The board has it. But I wanted to just briefly talk about what those methodologies were. The first methodology that we applied was $1 per square foot, and the second methodology we applied was a relative change in assessments of other comparable properties. To find a batch or a group of comparables, we conducted a nearly exhaustive assessment of 71 comparable single-family homes. All these homes were sold in Arlington in 2021. All are within a 1.5-mile radius of the subject property. All are at least 2,750 square feet. Ours is 3,200 square feet, so we wanted to capture larger houses. And on average of these 71 properties, they are 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, so actually bigger, better properties than ours. On $1 per square foot basis, of the 71 comparable properties we identified, and these are all in the information that we submitted to the board, the dollars per square foot is $447 per square foot. And we believe that $1 per square foot analysis is a very accurate analysis because it equalizes for a lot of things. If a property is bigger or smaller, $1 per square foot accounts for that. If a property has an extra bedroom and one less bathroom, $1 per square foot accounts for that too. It's really about how you use the space and how big the property is. Ultimately, what you have is what you should pay for. And if you take $447 per square foot and multiply it by the square footage of our property, an assessed value should be $1.45 million. And this interestingly represents a decrease of about 5% from the price that we paid in 2021. In 2021, we paid 1.54, and our proposal today is the property should be assessed at 1.45. And this reflects a market drop that occurred, sadly, just after we bought our property. And it also puts the property in line with comparable properties that have also sold more recently. Our second methodology is a percentage change in the 2022 assessed values, and this is Arlington County's analysis. And what we did is we compared, of our 71 comps, we looked at how Arlington changed the assessment on those 71 comps. And on average of all the 71 comps, there was a 3.5% decrease in the assessed value relative to the 2021 sales price. So if a property sold in 2021, on average, Arlington County decreased the sales price by 3.5% to get to the assessment for 2022. Of the 71 comps we identified, 90% of the properties that sold before 2021 had a decrease in the assessment. And 72% of all comparable properties sold last year, and this is of the 71 comps that we found, had a decrease in the assessment value from the purchase price. And so at the very least, without jumping into numbers and without getting deep into analysis, of the comparable properties, and we found 71, most of them had a decrease in the assessment. But ours did not. Ours actually went up, and ours went up by quite a bit. So if you were to apply the standard decrease in assessments from purchase price to sales price last year, that was applied on average to all the comparables we found. You take our 1.54 sales price, subtract 3.5% as an alternative to dollars per square foot. On a decrease in assessment, you could reach the number of 1.48. That's a 3.5% less than our purchase price. We have reviewed the county's analysis that was provided in the packet, and our biggest contention with the county's analysis is the county hasn't considered our methodology, hasn't considered our findings, and hasn't responded to it. The entire analysis that's provided by the county, at least in the information that was provided to us and the information that is in the record before the board, is that there's a simple statement in there, and this is the analysis, that assessments may be above or below recent sales prices are analyzed and adjusted using a mass appraisal methodology. And that's a rather general statement of the methodology, but there's absolutely no analysis of what mass appraisal methodology was used, or why it was the appropriate methodology, or even how it was calculated. And I want to highlight that the matters before the board for consideration are limited to what is in this packet. I have submitted a rather detailed methodology of what I believe the assessment should be. The county hasn't. And so just based on this record, I would argue that the county should adopt my methodology. The result of our first round of, I don't want to call it an appeal, our first request to the county to reconsider the assessment. The county conducted a virtual inspection, despite us noting that there were actual physical problems with the property. The county conducted a virtual inspection, looked at the pictures from the recent sale, and reduced the effective age of the property by 5 years. And this resulted in lowering the assessed value by $40,000. But there's still no real analysis. There was no metrics, there's no calculations. There's nothing in here, at least for me as an appellant, to review and poke holes in the methodology the county used. And at most, what we can deduce is that the reduction in value appears to be arbitrary and conciliatory rather than an objective result of analyzed data. Our review indicates that Arlington County has clearly not used the best data available, or any data, and they certainly haven't described how they used any of that data to reach an assessment. There are so many nearby similar properties, and the county should avail itself of some of the data, or at least of some of the analysis that we put forth to the board, which indicates that the subject property has been overvalued. Based on the changes to assessments on similar properties, we believe that our property has been singled out by having its assessment raised when 90% of comparable properties have had their assessment reduced. Arlington County is entitled to an assumption that the valuation is correct, but they shouldn't be entitled to that assumption if there's no transparency in the methodology and no analysis is provided. In conclusion, we provided two what we believe would be acceptable valuations. The first valuation is in $1 per square foot, which we believe is the best because it equalizes for all variances. That would be, and if the county were to adopt that, and we're encouraging the county to adopt this, the valuation would be 1.45. As an alternative valuation, if the county found that it was appropriate to apply the decrease in assessments that were applied to the comparable properties to ours, the assessment could be 1.48. And then finally, even if the county determines that none of these assessments are appropriate, our house sold last year, we purchased it last year for 1.54, and probably the best comparable is the house itself. And as a final, I guess, third option, the county may determine that the last year's sales price is an appropriate assessment. That'll be 1.54. We don't actually believe that's the best one because property values have decreased precipitously since our purchase, but at the very least, it is really the best comp. So we'll turn it back over to the county.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Churchill for the county, please.
Good morning, board. This property was virtually inspected on March 4th of 2022. It is a 2-story wood siding and cement fiber siding home with 5 bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, and an unfinished basement. The year built is 1927 and effective age was 2005, with the quality being excellent minus. The appellant does feel the increase to the property's value is unfair due to the market. The homeowner provided 7 comparables, 3 of which were not in the same neighborhood, but the 4 that were in the same neighborhood are as follows. 18040030, which is 721 North Danville, was the same neighborhood as the subject, has a sale price of $1,595,000. It was a valid sale and has an assessment value of $1,555,800. The differences from this property to the subject is a 1 additional half bath, a finished basement, lesser finished square footage, greater year built and effective age, and also a greater quality. The second comparable is 18053010, which is 426 North Edgewood. Again, same neighborhood as the subject. The sale price was $1,550,000 with an assessment value of $1,468,900. The differences are a finished basement, lesser finished square footage, lesser effective age, and greater quality than the subject. The third comparable was 18051014 with a sale price of $1,325,000 with an assessment value of $1,237,600. The differences in the subject are a finished basement, lesser finished square footage, and a greater quality. And the fourth comparable is 18054001. It had a recent sale price of $1,600,000 with an assessment value of $1,601,500. The differences in the subject is 1 half bath, a finished basement, lesser finished square footage, greater year built and effective age, and greater quality. Again, the 3 additional comparables submitted by the homeowner are in different neighborhoods than the subject. The appellant's neighborhood 506057 increased on average overall 5.9%. The property's grade appeared in line with the neighborhood, but the property was virtually inspected and changes were made. The effective age was reduced from 2005 to 2000, causing the improvement value to decrease from $745,000 to the improvement value from $745,700 to $705,600, bringing the total value from $1,601,100 to $1,561,000. As a result of the review, the virtual inspection, and information submitted, we determined changes needed to be made, causing a decrease in value. It is recommended that you confirm the 2022 amended value of $1,561,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from board members? Mr. Lawson.
Yes, thank you. This is for the owner. On the structural problems, have you had any estimates performed of necessary repairs?
No, we have not. Our estimates we picked off major things. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but I'm looking at things that actually require a real contractor to come out and do it. These are not, replace a light fixture kind of things. So, and I just know that that's going to be expensive. So no, I haven't had an assessment to get that done, but conceptually, for example, to replace insulation, you got to rip the walls out and put in insulation, put the walls back. It's not a cheap thing to do. like replacing a light fixture. And same thing with termite damage. I've had an opportunity to go into the crawl space, sadly, and there are holes in the structural members. They're soft when I put my fingernail on them. You know, I don't know what it's going to take to do that, but you know, somebody's going to have to get in there and support the house with jacks and remove wood and put wood back in. So I haven't had an assessment, but to say the least, it's going to be expensive.
Okay. Other questions? Mr. Metzgen.
Yeah, I'd like to follow on that. I had a question similar. For the department, I have two questions for the department. The first one is, if you can confirm some of these structural issues, and it's too late for this, well, actually I have a sub question. Did these structural issues, were they brought up to you by the appellant over the last couple of months?
So there is some reference to it, but unfortunately, a lot of that is deferred maintenance, which we try to account for. We do look into these things, and it may be, the house came with the problems. We understand that, but it is still considered deferred maintenance that we, that's what we look at.
So if that's the case, would that, this is my real first question, would that affect, you can confirm this stuff, would that affect the quality or the condition of the home, knowing that this is unusual damage?
He does have a lower quality compared to some of the other comparables that we have that are maybe in better shape than he is. We obviously do look at the quality in regards to not necessarily deferred maintenance, but if it was more damaged and like less livable, then we would look at the quality. I guess due to the fact that he can physically stay there, I think quality has to be a bigger damage to the home in order for us to reduce it more.
Okay, question asked and answered. The other one is, hope I can read my notes. Do you consider the value of the improvement relative to finished improved space different if it's below grade versus at or above grade, or is it all the same?
Well, the basement has a lesser value per finished area, but when it comes to the main floor and above, they would have the same value.
Yeah.
So a basement does have less value put on the finished square footage.
Yeah, because I went through the comps to see what was finished basement, total finished square footage vis-a-vis what is below grade, what is above. Okay, that matters. Okay, I suspected, but I wanted to hear you say that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, this is also for Ms. Churchill. If a report was given to you indicating the magnitude of deferred maintenance, and if the deferred maintenance slips into structural, might you lower the year that you consider this building from 2000 to maybe something, I don't know, maybe 1995 or something?
Hi, board. This is Andrew King. I'm the acting residential senior right now. It is something that we would take into account. It's a case-by-case basis. But the issue is the homeowner is still living there, so that becomes an issue for us. How serious is it? How much weight do we give to it? If residents have a leaking roof, we don't go in there and take off any evaluation for that, because again, they're living there. That's part of maintenance. That's part of owning a home. But again, it's case by case. We'd have to look at it and take it into account. The owner living there is an issue. Again, the other side of that is that when people do have these major issues, they often get them done. So then in the next year, it's already been completed. So it would never affect the valuation if it was completed before 2023.
Yeah, my Mr. King, I guess my question my question is, let's say it is structural, and in fact you have to jack up the house and pour a better foundation, whatever. Might that impact the year that you consider? That's my question.
We do have issues where we lower the effective age, or we can lower the condition. We can tweak those values. We've had houses that have been not abandoned, but almost unlivable. We do take that into account. if it was that serious and it's not going to be done before 2023, the appellant can have us out and take a look at it or submit a report, something like that we could take into account. It's not 100%, I don't want to get the appellant's hopes up, but it is something that we can look at and take into account for the next year.
Okay, I have a question for the appellant. Mr. Maskell, did you finance this property when you purchased it?
Yes.
Was there an appraisal done on it?
Yes. The
Did you-
appraisal was at 1.55.
Okay. Did you do a home inspection on the property?
No.
Okay. All right, other questions? No? Okay, Ms. Churchill, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Okay, thank you, board. Again, as a result of the review of the virtual inspection and information submitted, we did decide to changes needed to be made to the property, causing a decrease in value. So it is recommended that you confirm the 2022 amended value of $1,561,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Maskell, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Sure. So from hearing the board's position, or not, from hearing the county's position on how it reached its analysis, we still don't know exactly what analysis method the county used to reach the value that they came to. It's kind of an arbitrary black box. And from me as a homeowner looking at what the county did, I can't tell you how the county analyzed any of the comparables to reach the value that we're at. So that's the first problem. The second problem that I'm looking at is that the county appears to be providing a livability standard before they're making any changes to the assessed value of a home. And what we heard from Mr. King is that, well, if the place is falling down, you can't live there, the roof is falling in, we're going to make some adjustments. But there's a sliding scale, and it's not a binary thing. I'm going to be very candid with the board. The house looks nice, and we're living here. And I can tell you that although it does have these structural problems, we're not going to fix them this year. But that doesn't mean that they don't need to be fixed. That doesn't mean that those things don't affect the value of the house. The final thing I want to bring up is that the county has rated this property excellent plus, excellent minus. And I'm ultimately, I admit that I'm not familiar with the county's methodology for assessing that. I have seen things called excellent plus and excellent minus. I assume there are other things in this range. I would submit that our property is not excellent minus. Our property is not in any method of excellent. It looks pretty. The previous homeowners had applied a lot of paint, and there's a lot of lipstick on this pig.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's just among the board members. Okay, Mr. Metzgen.
Okay, I'm the least faint-hearted. I would hope that, I agree, it's not binary. You live in the house, it's okay. If you can't live in the house, it's not okay. And I think a leaky roof is a whole lot different than structural problems. If the house is going to implode into the ground, that's a more significant factor for sure. And I would, and as Mr. King said, if you get over there and get real contractor estimates and point out things to the department, that for next year, the department may reasonably be convinced that the condition or the quality ought to be decreased in absence of any remediation of those fundamental structural problems. But that's not this year because we don't have any confirmation either between these two parties or a professional contractor. The second contention of the appellant is that he doesn't understand and rejects mass appraisal techniques. He has every right to get taken through in the software that they use and the training that the department employees have. But I haven't understood that he's asked for it, and certainly I know he hasn't gotten it. But if he's dissatisfied as an Arlington taxpayer, as everybody else on the screen is, you ought to get that information. But I'm siding with the training and the very significant software that the department uses to come to their conclusions as sacrosanct, unless some massive something happens that says that all of mass appraisal is in this country is in error. But otherwise, I reject the appellant's contention that it is. And finally, I did have one more for us. Maybe I'm not going to find it. Should be. Otherwise, I'll just say absent those two things, it does seem within a reasonable range, knowing again that maybe next year things may change based on the purported condition. But it was bought within the assessment period. I'm a realtor. I know lots of people don't get assessments in a very hot market around here. He did nothing wrong. He wanted to buy what seemingly was an appropriate residence. And he got caught, and that's too bad. And maybe he can fix it with more information for next year. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Yates?
Well, I do think that as someone that does do houses and things of that nature, I think if he had had the inspection, which I'm surprised he wasn't required to have one, he would not have had the appraised value that he did get when he bought the house, and he would have the documentation to show the county a little bit more information. As far as the county goes, I agree with what's been said, that, you know, the county's not, they're fairly close to in line with what I analyzed the numbers at myself. So maybe next year, and he needs to really justify his value that he thinks he has, but not just based on the comps he came up with, but maybe on the house itself and the condition.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, from a standpoint of the argument that the appellant made that, you know, his methodology, possibly the dollar per square foot, that doesn't hold water with me. I mean, there's a difference between whether you have bathrooms and kitchens or additional kitchens versus just open living space. I mean, that's not a standard appraisal practice, and or decreasing a group of the assessments and of the comps. You know, I look at this, I don't think from a standpoint of his appraisal, I mean, his appraisal came in at the same amount. Now, I agree with you, Mark, that had he had a home inspection, that would have been a time to be able to go back to the homeowner and say, before we close, I'm not going to, you know, pay this price, you know, but with the absence of that, I think it's very difficult for us to make any adjustments. I think the fact that the county went in and did, you know, slightly over a 5% decrease to the building makes sense, certainly for this year, but, you know.
And when the neighborhood went up 5.9%.
5.9, yeah, no, I agree. And, you know, again, I know the appellant is saying that they don't understand, there's no basis, there's no methodology, and the county hasn't been transparent. I mean, they have. I mean, if you look at the grid, they're looking at the 3 comps. Here's the sales prices. You know, there's additional information in the package. I mean, so I don't think that it's an issue that the county hasn't showed him how he came about. Now, if there's other information that the county's not aware of, I think, again, that's something, if we can get it documented, that he would have a good case to have something looked at in the future. But just to say, hearsay, oh, here's this deferred maintenance and it affects the value, I think we'd open the door to every homeowner in Arlington saying the same thing. And I would be the next one in line to do it. Because, you know, I've got a 70-year-old house, you know, so.
Well, not to belabor it, but I do suspect if he put this house on the market, he would not be getting the price that he paid or the assessment. So that's just.
Well, that's speculative. You don't know.
I don't know, but you're right.
You don't. Okay, Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, the only point I wanted to make is I think the county did in fact act in good faith. And I think that it's incumbent upon the owner to, you know, he needs to prove his case. And I think in this instance, he needs to do it with something more than, you know, hey, this thing really needs a whole lot of work. I think you've got to demonstrate that. And I think it has to be more than deferred maintenance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Anything different, Mr. Penaranda?
Yeah, I agree with you, Barnes. I think that's really one of the biggest points in this case. You know, you can avoid or you can choose not to do a home inspection because you want to win the bid if there's, you know, multiple bids on a property. But, you know, I would never suggest any of my buyers to do without a termite inspection. It's a very minimal cost, and, you know, it sometimes this covers more than just a home inspection would do. But I don't know if they did one in this case, but they should have discovered if there was anything like that. I'm okay with the assessment the way it is.
All right, then I will move to accept the county's revised assessment of $1,561, which is a reduction from the original. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Matskin is a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The assessment's reduced to the county's recommended number of $1,561,000 even. Thank you, Mr. Matskin. All right, that completes the agenda with moving the third case to tomorrow. So I believe we have Ms. Kelly.
Yes, good morning.
There she
Good
is.
morning, Mary.
And then just by chance, just in case somebody, were you able to email the?
I was. If everyone could just check their email, I did resend.
I just wanted to make sure everybody had it in front of them.
Okay. Looks like everyone's nodding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Did you want me to start, Mary?
However you want to handle it. I'm turning this over to you.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to discuss the departmental changes for the 2022 commercial guidelines. Similar to last year, the guideline book is available online and was provided to the board members. We have found that having the information online has been more efficient and more transparent. The commercial team will discuss the individual property type, guideline changes, trends in the market, sales and publications that were used to develop those commercial guidelines. This year, the team is similar to last year, but the team includes Chris Chikis, who's the commercial senior, and he's also going to discuss apartment and hotel properties. Lori Roskin will discuss general commercial properties, and Rob Peralta will discuss office properties. And this will be in a similar fashion in order that is listed in the guideline book. And if you follow the news, you'll see that employees are returning to the office. Federal government and businesses are requiring employees to be back in the office. Lower COVID restrictions or relaxed COVID restrictions has caused an uptick in travel and an increase in business traffic. There was a slight reduction in appeals for this year compared to 2021. There are 245 BOE appeals this year versus 270 from last year. And the only thing I'll note as far as, because I don't want to go too far into each individual property class, I'll allow the appraisers to do that, is that there has been no change to the definition of a garden style and mid-rise apartments for this year for the department. With that being said, I'm going to turn the floor over to Chris Chikis so that he can discuss the apartments and hotels for now.
Morning, board members. If we're looking specifically at the guidelines themselves, you're not going to see too much change in regards to cap rates. Cap rates, in fact, stayed the same. We did see an uptick in vacancy and collections, vacancy and concessions. You'll see that kind of across the board. As the board is familiar, we tend to work off of historical information, and so obviously there were a bit higher rates of vacancy and concessions that were felt in the marketplace in 2020 than there were in the year that we're in now, and of course in 2021 that's being reported to us this year. So we expect that that will tighten up a little bit for 2022, 2023, and 2022's reporting. But for 2021, we did see an uptick. Garden style apartments went up from 6 to 7%, mid-rise from 6 to 8%, and high-rise from 5 to 8%. Again, for the most part, expenses stayed fairly grouped tightly based, again, on responses that we get to the INEs. Didn't see too much change there. And again, no change in the capitalization rates that we've been applying. As far as sales in 2020, we actually saw, 2021, we saw a fair amount. I believe there were 9. we did note that I think 5 of those occurred the last couple months of the year, so it was too late to make an adjustment to cap rates. In fact, 5 occurred after November 22nd. Largest, of course, which y'all are probably familiar with, was Barcroft Apartments there in Columbia Pike. That was an interesting one in that it was got some help from Amazon's affordable fund, and the county actually also helped, and that was essentially to preserve committed affordable. Previously, this was what they call market affordable, and is now going to be committed affordable through covenants with the county. We've seen a continuation of sales throughout the county in regards to multifamily. Again, if you're looking at the guidebook, you'll see that as has been typical the last couple of years, the assessment to sale ratio is quite low. You know, the backbone, the sort of driving force behind commercial valuation is that present values derived from future benefits. The principles of anticipation, and that's really what's going on. There's a lot of absorption, really, when new apartments come online, they tend to be filling up fairly quickly. A lot of new apartments being approved, a lot of new apartments being built. I don't know how much you guys want to go into that. We tend to kind of just do overviews, but we're obviously open for questions as well. But there's a lot of new activity going on all around Amazon. You know, we've talked for years now about the Amazon effect being, you know, it's coming, it is here for sure. You know, you're seeing that not only with sales, but with construction. And also with the kind of construction that's being approved. There's been some of the projects that have been moved from office to multifamily. And again, I think that's sort of taking cues from what's going on, what's already being built as far as the literally millions of square feet of office properties. Touch on hotels. Hotels, again, did not change much for 2022. We actually did see some sales in late 2021. Again, there was 4 sales in 2021, but 2 of those were in December. So again, much too late to affect any thoughts we had as far as cap rates. So cap rates stayed the same. Really, everything stayed the same. Though hotels are still in a bit of disarray. Obviously, they were the most impacted, at least immediately, by COVID when it came out in 2020. We saw a huge drop off in 2020. We saw a rebound in 2021. You know, most of y'all are familiar with the idea of what they're calling the sort of the Nike swoosh recovery line, which is essentially looking at about 3 years or so of recovery from 2020 to get back to 2018, 2019 levels. So you can kind of suggest that we're in that second year, if you will, of recovery, about 67% of levels from 2019. There were, again, 4 sales that we noted, and this is really, again, pure anticipation of future benefits. 2 of those sales were on Richmond Highway, again, really showing faith in the commercial sector coming back, hotel airports coming back. There's been a good deal of uptick of business development in National Airport itself, with new gates opening, sort of return to business vitality. As Deidre noted, with federal offices coming back online and sort of a push to return to normalcy, you know, there's a lot of anticipation that the travel is going to uptick. Relaxation of, again, safeguards with regards to restrictions or quarantines, even masking itself. So, you know, we believe that obviously there's going to be a continued uptick in a lot of the hospitality, but given that we are still looking at January 1st as our date of evaluation, that's basically where we're going to be bound by. We do, again, there's at least 1 hotel that's been approved for development, and that's, again, another sign of faith in the industry itself, the sector. This will be the Verizon Wells Fargo site on Washington Boulevard in Clarendon. So there is anticipation of a new hotel, obviously Holiday Inn, Rosin's being redeveloped, and then Marriott will be sort of touched up. We did officially lose, and this was more last year, but Americana has been converted through site plan, and that will be redeveloped into multifamily. And that again is taking advantage of Richmond Highway and a lot of that Amazon HQ2 development. Do we want to touch on, oh, Rob's here to speak on office. So that's basically apartment and hotel. If that was too quick, if there's any sort of questions you have, do feel free to ask follow-up. We're here for clarification or any follow-up questions you have.
Thank you, Chris. Laura, can you discuss commercial properties now?
Sure. For general commercial, if you're going to do a comparison between 2021 guidelines to 2022 guidelines, you've probably noticed that the most substantial change this year is the vacancy rate and some of the expenses. And what's happened, as you know, in the past, for the last 4 or 5 years, I've gone to tremendous lengths to contact a large number of owners on our I&E statements to get clarification on what is base rent that they're reporting and what is pass-through or other or miscellaneous storage. And so this year, that vacancy rate increased for 2 reasons. One, this is based off of 2020 I&Es, which is the beginning of the pandemic. And so that affected the vacancy rate. But the other way, or the other reason, big reason, is I've changed the method of how I'm developing that vacancy and the expenses. I'm doing it based off of only base rent. It no longer includes parking. It doesn't include storage, pass-through, and other incomes. The vacancy, once again, the vacancy and the expenses were developed off of only the base rent that is being reported. So I was able to extrapolate that, and that is why you had such a huge jump. I anticipate next year that to go down, especially the vacancy. I anticipate it to go down because of what I see being reported for 2021 I&Es. The other thing is last year, one of the board members asked if we could come up with a more variety of cap rates for general commercial. We took this to heart and we looked at it, and we still did not see a major justification to change the overall cap rate of 7.3% for the property class codes of 214, 219, 251, and 252. And those happen to be your neighborhood centers, your mixed office commercial, your warehouse, and your self-storage. However, we did see a drop. We had quite a bit of sales. We did see a drop in the property class code 211 and 212, which is just your retail strip and your restaurants. We saw the cap rate drop. And so if you've noticed, we dropped it by 15 basis points. As for the commercial condos and the small office, those cap rates remain the same. And let's see. For the mall cap rates, we looked at the publications and we reviewed RERC and PwC, and those showed for the malls, the major malls, that showed an increase of 30 basis points. So from last year to this year, we increased those cap rates by 30 basis points. And then for your power centers, which is, we call it West Post. If you look at the mall notes, I've labeled it as West Post, but they're still calling it Pentagon Row, excuse me. Yeah, so it's the same property. That only increased 10 basis points, along with the Costco and Market Commons. That fell with the retail cap rate, and that dropped 15 basis points. As for the sales, let me get to my sales page. as for the sales, we had a number of sales that showed up after I had developed the cap rates. So basically, when you look at the sales list, anything that has occurred after November 15th, with the exception of the Arlington Medical Center, any of those that occurred after November 15th, those were not included in the analysis. However, I did go back and review them, and they still support the cap rates, the current cap rates. And the only other small comment that I'd like to make, and it's just a minor one, with some of the appellants that are appealing, they're submitting spreadsheets for rents and percentage rent. We're noticing a trend for 2021 that the percentage rents were still being utilized in the first half of the year, but they're actually evaporating. They're now moving back to base rent. That doesn't occur with all of them, but I am seeing a trend with some of the appellants where that percentage rent is going away and they're going back to the original base rent. I think that's pretty much it for general commercial, and I also hit on mold. Thank you. Yes.
Can I just ask a question why we have it? Why it's fresh in my head. When you were talking about the PCs 214, 19, 51, and 52, so it's mixed office, commercial, warehouse, self-storage, and what was the first one?
Neighborhood Center 214. And
oh, that's right.
Yeah, and if you look on the guidelines on the page for general commercial guidelines, you'll see it midway down the page.
Right.
I actually have identified those PCCs if you need it for further reference.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yes, Ken.
Mr. Matzkin.
Thank you. You had mentioned a trend, and this makes a lot of sense. Percentage rent, earlier last year because they weren't selling much. And landlords are good enough and smart enough to adjust rents to actual sales. And now as things picked up, so are you averaging that? How are you assessing individual? Given that's a major trend in rent income, how are you? And I have a second question after this. How are you adjusting for that over the year of the valuation?
So obviously for appeals, we're taking consideration to 2021 just for appeals. And so I'm taking a look at that. I'm also comparing it to 2020. Okay. And making decisions on the health, if you will, the health of that particular property. Okay, but keep in mind the guidelines were based on 2020, which is the beginning of the pandemic. I was just noting that for 2021, some of those base rents that are percentage rent in lieu of base rent, they were still in place, but they're starting to go away. And like I said, I'm only seeing that in the appeals. Okay, I haven't reviewed all of the 2021 INEs yet.
So proposed appellants are bringing that up, though, that we've changed our rent structure and you didn't account for the department, and that's what you're working on now.
So I guess you could say it's a case-by-case basis. Yeah. It's dependent on the property, but some of them, when I am evaluating the rent, I am identifying separately the percentage rent. Okay. And when I'm calculating the average rent, it's based on those who are still paying base rent. Okay. And I may, in some cases, I may decrease that net leasable area because I'm excluding those tenants who are paying on a percentage rent in lieu of base. But it's a case-by-case basis because there are some unique properties and they have different ways, owners have different ways of how they've dealt with their tenants, keeping their tenants in place or whatnot. So I do have a couple where at first I was like, okay, across the board, but it's the way they're reporting. But like I said, all I can say right now before the cases are brought before the board, all I can say is this case by case basis when it comes to that percentage rent.
You're alive to it, and that's all you can do right now. My second question came and gone, so maybe it'll be appeal, maybe not. Thank you.
I did want to make one note really quick. For the vacancy rate, the vacancy and the expenses, what I am doing with my summary pages, I am highlighting that in gray. Because the percentages are not going to look, you're going to go, well, the percentage is wrong. You know, when you've based it off of the EGI. Well, just keep in mind, it's no longer based off of the EGI. It's based off of the base rent. And so I've highlighted those numbers in gray. They tie in to anything that's in gray. Okay. If you're wondering why for tomorrow's appeals. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lori. Rob, can you begin your discussion about office properties? You're muted.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for being late to the meeting. I was discussing cases that we're trying to get done before September, hopefully. For office, we did look at all the INEs that we received. This year we got a higher percentage of INEs compared to last year, 73% last year as opposed to 84%. So we got a higher number of data to review. However, we got more of the same. A lot of the reporting again was all actual information. What we found in the past, as you'll see in the cases coming before you, is the actual rent being reported and not the potential gross. A lot of times the vacant square footage is not accounted for in the historical income, and the department does their best to kind of show the board that it needs to be accounted for in our test columns. With the overall office market, we did look at all the sales. We had a strong number of sales this year as opposed to years previous, and these sales kind of happen in different parts of the year. So we thought it was a good indication of what the market was for office. We do have more recent sales that I can touch on later on, but if we go over kind of the basis of the office valuations, we did see that the income in the rents had dropped basically in the Roslyn Courthouse, Boston area. I mean, that's not indicative of what we're seeing in the rent rolls when we review the cases. However, this is again the information I received, and this is a large portion of that is because they're reporting actual income. With vacancy across the board, we're at 24%, an increase of about 4% from last year. Last year's was about 20% across the board for vacancy. With expenses, we looked at the range again. We'll see the range had increased compared to last year. I believe the range increased only a few dollars from last year. I think our range in 2021 is of $17. Again, it's a case by case basis, and with each case, you'll see the exact expenses reported. Parking did change. We did find that the reported actual income received for parking spaces did decline, and that's indicative of not many people coming into the office. We do see, however, there's been a shift where it's more of a hybrid approach that office buildings are taking, and a lot of the businesses are taking. Cap rates didn't change. Again, based on the sales that we did receive. I mean, we did have great sales this year that kind of showed that the cap rates should be changed, should be lowered in a sense. But I mean, we didn't take that change to heart, given the situation we're in with COVID and things like that, and more of a hybrid situation with most businesses. The outlook for office, I think it actually looks good. I mean, we see reports on both sides. One saying doom and gloom, and I can only report on what's happening in Arlington. And what we've seen is we had, I believe it was Boeing that is relocating their headquarters here. We have a recent article that Raytheon is moving their headquarters here. I believe it's in Roslyn. Amazon's moving right along. There's they hit a milestone where they reached the top of the building as far as construction is concerned. I think that's all I have. We did make a change with respect to the TIs allotted for vacant office space. We increased that to, I think the range that I have here is, second, 115 for buildings that charge $45 or more, or newer buildings or renewal leases in excess of $45 a square foot. Was there anything else that you'd like to add, Chris or Deidre? I think.
Yeah, it was really just kind of seizing upon what Rob just talked about, and that was that this, again, we harp on this Amazon effect, but it is real. Boeing was technically already here, but now fully fledged, their office headquarters will be here, moving from Chicago. Raytheon just announced today. Microsoft has a heavy presence here. We always have, we're lucky in that we're right off the federal government, literally across the Potomac River. But again, I think that bodes well for the office future, in the sense that a lot of these companies that we're talking about are, bodies in their seats kind of businesses, and bringing in their employees to work. I think you will see a trickle-down effect into a lot of these mixed-use businesses that have retail on the bottom floor. Anecdotally, we heard about mom-and-pop places like the dry cleaners were being affected because people weren't, putting their button-downs on, and so they weren't losing business. We expect that to come back, even more so than all the foot traffic we saw last year, and that sort of resurgence. Again, we talked about federal government coming back, and sort of all that trickled down from travel. And again, all the hangers-on, the support services that want to be with these companies. Amazon and Microsoft are competing for government contracts, but then you got to remember there are a lot of contractors who are competing for Amazon and Microsoft business. And so they're obviously highly paid employers. And again, we have a highly paid citizenry, if you will. They're highly qualified as far as multiple degrees. So as far as the people that we have in the county have a lot of money to spend, and they've stuck by and sort of seen resurgence in a lot of these neighborhoods in Roslyn, Boston Quarter, etc. So it's kind of being paid back in dividends. In regards to basically what we've seen on the office effect, we do hope that will trickle down, but we've also have seen some conversions of apartments into multifamily, more so in the surrounding jurisdictions. Where I live here in Falls Church, Bailey's Crossroads, they're actually converting some of the Skyline properties into multifamily. We've seen that through the site plan redevelopments, and the owners are asking for permission to turn over from office to multifamily. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the older buildings sort of also change over and look for conversions, as opposed to try to stay at 40% occupancies. So, any wrap up, Dee, or just questions from the board members?
Just questions from the board members. Hey, Ken.
Thank you. I'm anticipating a little negative feedback from appellants, so I want to ask this question, make sure I'm clear. You were talking about sales were strong. You also all mentioned that there were a bunch in the last month, 6 weeks of 2021 that are just too late for you to take into account. But that cap rates have stayed the same or dropped in a couple of classifications. So 2 questions. First, are you taking sales from late 2020 because you couldn't accommodate them last year for the same reason you're not taking them for late 2021 in this cap rate calculation? I wonder how far back you're going in anticipation of appellant's questions.
So yeah, the question is, will we use the sales from October on? It's very similar to the residential side in the sense that we can't adjust our guidelines once we basically set them, and then any valuations that we made, and then restart them, if you will, with the new sales information. So this sales information will be used for the 2023 year. And then in our guidebook for 2022, they're listed, but really we're too late to impact anything that we did for the January 1, 2022 assessment.
No, I'm going for this current assessment year. Are you taking some stuff from late 2020?
2020.
Or maybe there weren't any, who knows?
Yeah, 2020, I can look back at there, but yeah, 2020 years previous, we will take into account. I think it's the same thing like most of the research we do, we place more weight on the recent sales that go on throughout 2020, 2021. But by we get to September, October, we're already knee deep in our analysis. So it's tough for us to really take too much consideration of those.
Yeah, but it's not strictly January 1st question.
Right. Those sales aren't ignored though, Ken. I mean, they did fall outside of the analysis period for 2021. So they were looked at to see if they were in line with where we are currently. And if you look at the sales, the assessment of the sales ratio on some of those sales, you'll see that the reason why we didn't make adjustments was because there wasn't anything that was warranted at the time when we did the analysis for 2022.
As it turns out.
Yeah.
But the very, very late in 2021, sales, again, you said a bunch after November 22nd, a bunch in January of 2021. Were they stronger per square foot? I mean, are things improving in the commercial sales arena as we go over the last 13, 14 months?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can at least speak for apartments. Going to just the hotel sales assessment to sale ratios of 73%, 72%, 90%, and 77%. And then for apartments,
which suggests strong amounts of key.
68%, 48%, 66%, either that, again, we're just low, or that they are privy to, and that's the way I would tend to look at it, is they're privy to more recent information. So we're looking at sales information from, a full year back. They're looking at trailing 12, which could be as early as the week before. So a lot of times when they're getting these net operating incomes, they're making due diligence decisions based on real-time facts. We're using assessments based on one full year's previous information.
Sure. And I guess that's why your cap rates held steady and to a limited extent dropped. So they're getting the benefit. This is apparently it's swinging up and they're getting the benefit of old data. Last year, of course, it was the opposite. Okay, thanks. I wanted to be clear on that because I know it's going to come up.
I'm not sure if there's any other questions from the board. We just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we are still available to respond to any questions that you may have after you've reviewed the guidelines and let the information process, as you process the information from today. We are starting commercial cases tomorrow. And so I'm sure that there will be questions after that, but we're available to respond to any questions that you may have going forward.
And I think we reached out to Greg. I think this similar thing happened last year where we met with Greg independently, so we'll reach out to him as well. Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, the only negative thing I've noticed in the commercial and office is it's taking a really long time to get building permits and a really long time to get your inspections. And then often materials are, takes a while to get them and they're more expensive. And Rob, I think you mentioned that you increased tenant build out How about tenant, how about time to build out? Were those adjusted at all?
Time to build out? I don't
Yeah.
think we've ever had a function of time to build
Yeah,
out.
we don't actually have that metric, Mr. Lawson. It's just
Okay.
the,
But the tenant improvements went up, you said from what to what again?
The new number is 115 and the old number was 110.
100, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you.
And it could be, Mr. Lawson, that the time to build out may be captured as far as like lease up sort of situation.
Yeah,
Especially if
yeah,
it's
I
new
think it was-
building, we may take that into
Yeah,
consideration.
you didn't call it time to build out, but I think it was in anticipated time to lease up.
Sure.
Thanks.
Mr. Penaranda?
Yes, good morning. To follow up on that, the tenant improvements, is that something that you're seeing in some of the appeals? Because I know it always comes up, but this is the first year that I see that is based on the square footage amount that they pay. If it's more than 45, then it's 115. If it's less than $45 per square foot, then it's $70.
We've always had
something-
that. No, we've always had that criteria, Jose. That's always been there. And again, I'm limited as far as, the information I receive. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the information that I do get that's more intimate with each office building is when the review happens. When analyzing all the data that I receive through the INEs, it's very little lease abstracts in there, if you will, that actually go into the details of exactly how much they paid versus the base rent and the TIs that were allotted. So it's limited, but I do see the information upon review, and I can make adjustments accordingly as the board as well.
Okay.
And it is noted in the 2021 guidelines. So it's been the case as far as the TIs and how the approach to those.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Were there any other questions? All right. Again, we're available to answer any questions. We thank you for your time. It's going to be a long year. We are steadily processing cases. I'm in contact with Rosa. I know that there has been some issues with trying to get a full calendar day for some commercial cases. That's mainly because a lot of the appeals that we've seen so far have been adjusted. So we have to allow time for the appellant to either accept or to move forward with the board case. So we are pushing through. We're trying to process cases as quickly as possible so that we can get through this 2022 board session. And so we appreciate your support this year.
All right, thank you, the commercial team. Okay, so does anybody else have any other business that we need to address before we adjourn? No? Just as a note, remember that we're going to hear the third case from the agenda today on the agenda tomorrow. So add that to that, and then otherwise, all right, well then if there's no other business, then we will adjourn here at 10:51 and re-adjourn tomorrow, Wednesday, the 8th at 9 a.m. See everybody in the morning.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.